everyone, and welcome to the AmericanScouser Podcast. Monday nights, we are back. The trio is here. As always, you guys missed the good old-fashioned pre-match fistfights. We're actually not a fistfight, more like trash talking. Bickler wasn't there, so you guys can determine who we were trash talking about. But I am your host, as always, here in Chicago, where it feels like the weather feels like when you go out in outside in October or something, and you're like, oh man, winter is here. Summer is over, I guess, kind of a weather. So I'm loving it for February to have this weather over here, but good days are ahead. Hopefully it won't get ridiculously. Brian says, enjoy all that snow. So I'm assuming you don't have such good news, Gally.
Yeah, supposedly we're getting smashed up with a storm. There is one coming up here, but as I listened to the radio this morning and had the dueling weather stacks where there were 3 different weather people all giving you the same goddamn forecast for the same area, and one was 2 to 6, one was 8 to 12, and one was Armageddon is coming. I don't buy any of it. Now they're talking we might only get 2 to 3 inches where I live, which is what I'll be rooting for, minus the 2 to 3 inches.
I think it makes better news when they say 8 to 12, because you're like, turn it on. What is she saying? 8 to 12. That's why, you turn it on and do it that way. Speaking of getting all smashed up and smashed down and stuff, Bickler's with us. Bickler, what's happening?
I'm here. I made it. It's just rainy and disgusting down here. That's it.
It's always good when Paul, of all people, mentions it and is like, are we still on Discord? Totally forgot to send that invite today, but it is what it is. So there's a lot to talk about.
We're going to literally get a weather update from every single state across the entire nation at some point during this podcast history. And I am all for it, because now we got people chiming in with the Midwest weather. We got people jumping in with weather updates. Alan was giving us a weather update before we went live. Alan figured out how to comment on this show before we actually got through the intro, which I thought was pretty outstanding in itself.
Yeah, so he has chilly. I don't know how that's chilly. 52, probably chilly for Houston, I'm sure. And then Steve is actually in my vicinity. I think it's Rockford area or somewhere around there. So yeah, we're having some really, really much. It's almost iffy. I feel like suddenly in March we're gonna get 20 inches or some shit. It's gonna slap us upside the head. But slapping upside the heads trivia time. Let's do some trivia. This is actually I had to. When BJ first sent it to me, and I was like, you do realize who I do the podcast with, right? So you do have to kind of narrow this down a little bit. So this is what we've narrowed down to. There have been 130 seasons, right, since Liverpool was founded in 1894. That includes seasons canceled due to the 2 world wars. How many seasons was the league play officially canceled during this period?
What? In 130 years, counting the 2 years that they didn't play.
Just imagine the original.
so
there was 100. I guess we can reword it this way. Due to the world wars, how many seasons were lost by being canceled out?
Oh. I'm going to show my ignorance in both math and world history.
He's like, 2.
I genuinely have no fucking clue. I'm gonna say I feel like it's gotta be 8, but I'm gonna say 8. I should have just said 7.
I wanted to get it out of the way.
Fun.
Normally, Victor gets the first dib. I throw
no. I want to know.
One of these world wars is significantly longer than the other. I'm just trying to think.
I am thoroughly impressed by your guys' knowledge of history so far. Am I shocked? No. Impressed? Yes.
I think one of these I know one is 4 years.
That's smart man right there, knowing when he's wrong.
4, 7. I'm gonna go. I think this 10 years of wars is right, but I think there's an additional year in there that I'm gonna go 11.
Damn, Bickler, look at that. Because not only you nailed it, you actually put thought into it, which was even more impressive than nailing it. Calculated it on everything. 11 years. I like how Mateusz and Steve are For those of you guys who don't know what the World War is, this is when it was kind of a deal. Yes, so 1516 to 1819, so 4 seasons for World War One, and then 7 seasons actually for World War Two, from 3940 all the way through 46.
Oh, so they were all war cancellations. I thought there was maybe one more year of like some random thing.
They are all like war related.
Right.
And fun fact over here, Steve says he was a history minor, but he did guess 10 at least. So look at that. Bickler was a history major. Not
Close.
Really, but close.
English.
What was your major? English.
Same thing. You go back to school for 8 more years or take $35,000 a year teaching.
Yeah, actually, and I hear the fun fact over here. In the first season that played after World War II, which is 46-47, Liverpool won that season.
Oh.
So actually, it wasn't. I thought
So
this
we
was going
just
to be
need-
a lot rougher.
So we just need another world war, and we'll get back on top. I get it.
That wasn't the moral of the story, but sure. Why not? Why not, indeed. Okay, so here we go with look at this. History degree majors are uniting in the chats over here. They were like classmates finding each other years later, which is actually possible. They're both in Chicagoland over here. A couple of things to get to. A lot happening, obviously. Even though there's no midweek game, we got a lot going on the American Scouser side of things. We did start our Patreon going finally. Took a bit longer than we hoped, but we wanted to get all the programming and all that kind of stuff right. So I will shoot the link in the chat as well. But then if you guys do want to, it's a good way to get involved, get more content, obviously support the website as well. We were talking about this morning, because we will talk later about some clickbait stuff. We were talking about in the morning show how we go out of our way to avoid clickbait stuff here on American Scouser in our posts and stuff like that. So we do rely on people, the word of mouth, dragging by the ear. To follow American Scouser, as I like to say, is what gets us going. But yes, a lot of specialty content. Actually, I'm pleased to announce, and this is what this whole thing is going over here with the headset. There's like a lot of mess going in front of me over here. We're gonna actually add some gaming content with the Polish Prince over here too, with gaming cocktails, which actually, now that I mentioned it, Bickler should probably in there as well. Yeah, see, like Bickler's like, wait.
This is such a bad idea.
I do. I love the idea of it. We're gonna play games, and we're gonna do a little gaming. We're probably gonna just beat up on some 12-year-olds around the world playing FIFA. But in addition to while we beat up on the 12-year-olds, we're gonna get belligerently drunk on air with you as we beat on your child. Like, my favorite part would be, like, for an extra $13, we will beat your kid's ass to the point that they won't even talk to you. They won't make you go anywhere. You won't have to do anything. I will beat your kid in FIFA just to put them in their place.
You know what? That would be actually a great service. Make the kid quit FIFA, beat him to a pulp, so that he can focus on the studies. Hey, Bickler has kids. I'm sure if we got on there and beat the hell out of the kids in Fortnite, not that we would be able to, maybe they will quit.
We keep talking about all these like ideas for growth and revenue and all these different options for us. And in like a 45-second span, Galleys went through starting another world war and beating on your kids. like I don't know why this thing hasn't taken off yet.
See, for 20, we will destroy their confidence so bad they will never play the game against us, Matush, because that's what.
Dude, I wonder if my therapist will sponsor this.
You know what? Why the hell not? Why the hell not? Get everybody involved over here. You know,
a little cyberbullying link on the bottom.
If you are being bullied. No, actually, we were talking about this in the morning, but if you're on Discord channel, like after my 49ers lost in overtime in a painful fashion over there, I literally posted and said, I feel bad for the next kid that shows up against me on FIFA. So as I'm beating up on that kid online, Anan volunteers his services to get beat up on. So I had a little bit fun with Anan as well.
I will say, I didn't think I could be more disappointed in getting selections or picks wrong, taking the Niners and the under in a very large lucrative pool, that if that had come in, it would have been great. But I'll tell you what, I've never disliked a douchey kicker and set up and holder more than the people in your San Francisco 49ers, because Kelly and I were the firm holders of a $100 square of 7-3, and that missed field goal only cost us a cool $1,000. That's right, $1,000. So Kelly says to me, "Hey, don't we have 7-3?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "If the Niners get a touchdown and they score like a second later," she's like, "Oh my God, did we just win $1,000?" I'm like, as soon as that extra point goes through the upright, she literally says out loud, "I've never been so excited for an extra point." I just started. I was like the mush in that movie. You could just rip up the ticket. I started walking to the bathroom, and she's like, next thing I know, I hear, "Fuck, shit, fuck." And I'm like,
Okay,
"Hey, man,
great.
huh?"
So
And I'm
now
telling
I
you,
know
it's
who
why-
to blame for this. Your guy's jinxing poor Michigan dude.
I'm pretty sure it
Yeah.
wasn't me jinxing the guy who missed as many kicks as he did all year long. But man, I tell you what, you make that kick, I think you win that Super Bowl, to be
Look,
totally
I don't
honest.
want to rub it in or anything, but he actually hadn't missed an extra point all year.
Right.
Yes, he didn't miss an extra point all year. He did miss some field goals, but to be fair to him, he did make some really long field goals.
That
He
kid
made
is
big
going to
ones.
be going to be one of the best kickers to ever kick for San Francisco. But that
Just-
sucks.
let's hope
That
so.
sucks.
Just so Matouche knows, this had nothing to do with that. This was a pool where the first 10 score changes paid $1,000.
Oh,
So
really?
That 17-13 was a guaranteed $1,000 coming in the pocket. I know it wasn't ending that way, but I was getting that money. And I literally got about 8 texts from people who clearly had a picture of it, checking on the status of me and my mental health for the next hour. So it's kind of like people coming out of the woodwork to help you with beating down the children in fantasy soccer.
Did you see
world over
Galley
in the
from
interwebs.
like It's a Wonderful Life as Jimmy Stewart just hanging out on the bridge? That's Galley.
Unbelievable.
Oh, poor
it was
Galley.
unbelievable. But
Well, it wasn't as
what?
painful as losing in overtime, but it was a good game
No.
overall. And then, you know what? One thing I did miss, and I was telling to Matush this morning too, is not having a therapy session afterwards, like, you know, the post match where you can kind of get it off the chest, finish it laughing. So that was my therapy, is first beating up on some random dude or kids on FIFA, and then Onan coming up against me, of course, starting Thiago and Soboslai and Nunez, of course, it is 11 in Liverpool. And I played many teams. I've never seen anybody start Thiago when they pick Liverpool, but I knew Anan would. So give him credit. At least he puts his money where his mouth is, kind of a deal. But at least there was some good sporting coming out of this weekend, which is Saturday, which is when our boys get the 3 points. When we talked about the lineup, obviously Alisson was a surprise. For the most part, no other huge surprises. What did you make of that lineup, and I guess the game overall, Bickler? How do you walk away from that fixture?
I mean, I was a little bit worried about the right side of that lineup defensively, but I think, I mean, I always think these matches are going to be tougher than most people do. I know that Burnley is like a weakened side, especially offensively, right? But like, I just think that these things are so it's so tough to just casually go in and roll a team, right? Like, and I think this is always going to be a little bit of a trickier fixture, especially with the people like we have out, and then you throw in those illnesses on top of it. Was it our best performance? Certainly not. I actually thought there was a lot of positives in this overall, though, and I thought like the team played fairly well. I thought they made some good adjustments second half. I thought they closed out well. I thought we had substitutions that were impactful. There were a few standout performances, but I thought all across the board, I thought it was a better effort than a lot of people that I heard online talking about the match.
Okay, so to give me the biggest positive then you took, because you said there were a lot of positives. What was the biggest one for you?
I mean, I think the biggest positive is that when the game needs to change or turn on its axis, the two key parts of that had to do with cornerstone pieces that we weren't sure we'd ever see long-term at Liverpool after last year. And Curtis Jones becoming like the complete midfielder to the point that when there's a positional change and somebody is substituted, he is now in the James Milner role of being able to be rotated as a utility player, which is just bananas. And then Harvey Elliott, who for 15 minutes was the best player on the pitch by a mile.
How about you, Gally? What did you make out of that performance overall?
So I was a little bit nervous with the lineup at first. I think, it's weird saying I was nervous because our two starting fullbacks were put back in the starting lineup. And it actually did make me nervous because it'd been a long time since, those four, I don't know if those four have ever played together, to be honest, with Kwanzaa, Trent, and Robertson back there. I would have felt much better if Gomez had been playing, period, at any of the three positions, to be honest. Over any of the other three, Trent, Kwanzaa, or Robertson at this point. And I thought Curtis Jones was really good. And to Paul's point, how crazy is it that the idea is we need to break glass in case of emergency? And the idea was Curtis Jones is the best defender we have. Like, that is crazy. The most, always going forward, trying to recreate the Everton goal. A guy I once saw do a Cruyff turn into an opponent on the sideline and then give up like a complete breakaway on his own goal. That guy is slotting back in at right back is really, really amazing. I think Endo looked rusty. That's understandable when you drop him back into this side. I think Mac looked out of sorts going forward, and that's probably because he's been asked to play out of position all year long in our tactics. I didn't think McAllister covered himself in much glory. I thought he was rough, especially on that right side. And I think it's still big that Darwin can score you a goal like he does, and I think it's huge for his confidence. He was a menace all game long, and I thought he did a lot of good things in the press. So, Darwin and Jota playing well together, Diaz playing better. I thought the attack was good. I thought everything else was kind of just okay, but I think that's understandable when you have 4 of your 5 guys at the back rotated.
See, I think that's interesting. I agree with a huge majority of it, except probably Endo. I actually thought he had like a really, really good game. It's almost was like, this is what we missed, is the feeling I got out of it. And I thought, now was my question. Like, what do we do with McAllister? Because we know what he can do as well. What did you think of that midfield, Bickler?
I thought Endo was great. I thought it was phenomenal. And I think it's even harder to come back and do that off an international break where the systems are different and you're getting plugged right back into a lineup. So, I mean, something like 21 duels or some crazy stat like that. He was just in the mix, right? And I just thought he was just disruptive. It's good to have a true number 6. Agree with him being the option or not. I mean, it's good to have a true 6, and I think that's what he is, And I mean, I think McAllister, I feel the same way about McAllister as I felt about Szoboszlai. Like, I don't know that he's in his best position, and I think that he looks like a player that could use a rest. I mean, but he's off the back of looking like a Rolls Royce the game before. So, I mean, that's the thing with McAllister is we've got to find some consistency. As protective as Klopp is with these players, I feel like at some point, he hasn't really shown that. And maybe this is just the confidence he has in McAllister, but it doesn't seem to me that he's really protected the way that McAllister beds into the side. And I think part of that was out of necessity to begin with, but there does seem to some reluctancy to push him further forward, which I know that we all want to see. And I think when he is pushed forward, we get a better version of that player. So we'll see what happens. I mean, a lot's going to have to do with what we do with Endo, right? But then you've got a lot of competition for spots.
See, that's like I don't know. Did we create our own monster? I guess in this time of year is like a rare time, right? We only have like 1 game a week and stuff like that. We're going to be back to having 3 games. But part of this inconsistency we get from players, including Maka, Szoboszlai, Endo, you name it. And oddly, Jones is probably your most consistent, at least because he knows the system. So he knows where to be, what to do, and stuff like that. Oh, it's like the Batman signal. We said Jones and good things about him because Saito is in the house. So that will come.
He wanted to make sure he knew there was someone here who disagreed.
So, but I mean, going back to my point, I feel like, did we create a monster are these guys inconsistent, Gally? Because the lineup is not consistent. They're never getting a run of games, if you will, with the same trio to be able to even get used to and give you a certain performance. Because, one day he's over here with this guy, the next day he's over with this guy, but now they switch positions and stuff like that. It's constant rotation? Is it almost like too much rotation?
Yeah, I mean, have we really been to too much rotation though, or is it really? It just feels in some ways like it's really just been McAllister and Endo kind of rotating at the 6 at times. When Szoboszlai's been healthy, he's started, and at most times when Jones is healthy, I feel like he's been starting. I think what Klopp's tried to do is rotate in players he wants to bet in more, and it just hasn't worked. I think he's given Gravenberch random starts, and it hasn't. I don't think it's worked very well for him. And now I think we have injuries that are kind of compiling it. I'd almost wonder if it's more in the front 3 area where there's not been consistent run of guys playing together outside of maybe that short period where we saw Nunez, Mo, and Diaz playing for a while, and it started to look like that was going to be the front 3. And then even that changed a little bit because Nunez went off the boil, and then Mo went off to AFCON and then had his injury. So I don't know that based on injuries this year, I don't know that Klopp has ever really had a chance to pick the same 11 for 2-3 matches in a row.
So you're saying it's more out of necessity and just not.
Yeah, I think the rotation has been. I don't think Klopp has changed that much. I think if he could still bury guys and run them into the ground, he would be.
Yeah, I mean, do you think so, Bigler? I mean, because is it just out of necessity we have to put people like out of position for one? I mean, that part obviously becomes out of necessity, but it's like it's been hard to get a consistent 11 going where like a set rotation, if you will, getting somebody else coming in for this guy and stuff like that. We just have not been able to do it, whether it's injuries, the cup, red card suspensions, and stuff like that. I guess moving forward, do you want to see more of this where people get an opportunity to try to make most of it? Because let's face it, in the past, when we had like a more consistent 11, maybe at the time due to lack of depth more than anything else, right? Then we would go to like a League Cup game or an FA Cup game, and it would look really disjointed because there were so many changes and stuff like that. And we'd be like, oh, yeah, they're so disjointed because there are so many changes. I feel like at times it does look like that now, because there are so many different parts every 11. You look at this 11, and then next week you look at the next 11, there's like 4 guys changed. And that's actually a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly part of it. I agree with Gally where I think that most of this is probably forced. I guess I think if I was going to look, and this feels silly to talk about on his last year, right? But I think if I was going to change anything, what I'd like to see happen more is I'd like to see favored starting 11 players, like veteran players that have been around forever, that have been in this locked in this starting 11, have to win jobs back. I think that's what I'd like to see. We talk about how we kind of laughed about the fact that no matter how good Connor Bradley was, Trent was going to walk back into that starting 11. But why? Do you know what I mean? Right? And I know that Trent has a very specific and very very specific and very incredibly high ceiling for the skill set that he has. Right. But I think I would just across the board would like to see players hold on to spots and in a C rotation, but really see more of it merit-based first on. Sometimes it feels like a little bit there's a little bit of a that veteran sway. If they've got their stripes, they kind of are locked into that 11 or at least into that 14, 15.
Yeah, that's going to be one thing I do want to see. Looking at Endo now, I mean, I find it hard to put Mac. I mean, I guess you're not going to have this problem for a while because Szoboszlai is not going to be in action for some time. But, when he does come back, I find it hard to take Mac out if he's performing well and, shift Endo to make room for Mac if Endo is performing well. But obviously, there's going to be a lot more midweek games and stuff like that. So rotation is going to be required. Going to the front 3, though, I mean, if there is definitely one guy that just walks in, regardless of who's doing what. I mean, the current front 3 could be getting hat tricks. We could be winning every game 9-0. I think when Mo comes back, somebody has to move. Who needs to move as of now, you think, Gally, looking at this current form? Because, I mean, I know you've been very critical of Diaz in the past. He seems to have kind of figured it out more, at least producing results at least. Nunez, we talked about a little bit, and then Jota can finish.
Jota does his job. I think I've always said this. Jota offers you the most from the bench, in my opinion, that he's a match winner. He can do it in 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. He doesn't need a ton of time to get going. I think that if you believe in Darwin Nunez and the project that is, and Paul has talked about it, how we bought this raw talent that could immerse into this world-class footballer, or just a maniac that's fun to watch, right? And right now he's a maniac that's fun to watch that has glimpses of brilliance. But I think you have to build on what he's giving you, and he's offering you all the little things and doing all the work to create more for his teammates, and really he's setting the press. So I think he plays. I think at this point it'd probably be Diaz, Mo, and Nunez, with Jota the first one off the bench. And I really think like Gakpo is in like a crosshairs for himself. Like he's fallen really far down the depth chart. Even when he gets on there, he doesn't look confident at what he's doing. He almost looks like he gets in his own way sometimes. And he's starting to do what Nunez used to do, which is try to make use of every minute on the pitch by shooting anywhere and everywhere. And that's not a knock, because I think he's a really great footballer. We're going to talk a little later about the managers and what could happen and all that. Paul talks about guys coming in and winning their job back. We don't have to rehearse last week's like tit for tat that we had about who should be sold and who could be talked about being sold. But the truth of the matter is, whoever the new manager is, there will be 2 or 3 names that we are absolutely shocked that they say that guy's not part of my plans. Like the next manager might walk in and say, Konate does not have the skill sets I want in a center back, or one that I want playing with Van Dijk. I'm not saying him specifically, but this happens everywhere where guys show up and they're like, not that player, not for me. And you're like, wait, what does Graham Potter know that I don't? Because that seemed like a pretty good player at Chelsea for the last manager. But they do this, right? Like they decide this guy's not for me, even though he was a really, really good player. And I think that we're going to be shocked, but that's going to happen at this club. Like, and it might be a Robertson. It might be it might even be a McAllister. It might be a kid we all love, or Sadu doesn't, and like Jones. Like, you never know what the new manager, because all of our players were built for Klopp's tactics, because he's been here longer than every player but Gomez. The new manager comes in, he's going to want to put his stamp, and Connor Bradley might be the perfect right back for that formation or that style of play. And I just think we have to get ready for that. And I don't think anyone in this area is ready to not be nostalgic with Klopp or with any of these players that he had, because we think of them like they're a big family, and that's wonderful. But like, players come and go, they're commodities.
Do you guys remember that time that Jose Mourinho sold Juan Mata like 3 times? And he kept going to clubs he was at and selling them.
And then he got to United.
They made the announcement, and Juan Mata was like, well, I guess I'm packing.
Back up, honey, we're moving. Jose is in town.
They did it again.
You know what? That's oddly, that's happened to me once, where shout out to Kevin Moore over here, whose greatest line ever was, "It is what it is." And I demoted this dude from one of my stores where I was the general manager. He was like a horror manager at the time. I demoted him, and then he went to another store as an assistant. He moves back up, and then literally 6 months later, I got appointed to be the store manager there. And the dude was like, "Oh, you gotta be shitting me. This guy is here now." But honestly, it was the best thing that ever happened, because he never blamed me for the demotion, one. And it was great to have a guy go around the store that I just took over and saying, "Hey, this guy's not fucking around, man. He'll demote your ass. So make sure you guys do whatever is needed." So it was golden. But yeah, I remember one, but the poor curse of Jose Mourinho. But here's the thing. I think, yes, system-wise, right, you would think there would have to be changes. I feel like sometimes, or not maybe sometimes, but I feel like a majority, I would say, of those changes that happen are to change a mindset. I think, Paul, while the system might require some changes, or that's not the kind of right back I need, that's not the kind of striker I need and stuff like that, at least you're not going to have an issue of coming in, because sometimes managers come in and try to remove the cancer in the locker room that we might not know, fans might not know, and say, "Dude, he's good. Why are we getting rid of him?" At least he's not going to have that issue. Or at least that we know of.
Well, yeah, I think part of that is just speaks to the character of the players that we acquire, right? But I also think most of that is down to culture. And I think over time, culture erodes. And I think there could be a situation with the same guys, say you have the same guys 2 years from now. Could there be a problem? I think so. Like if you don't have the right manager in there that holds that team together, I mean, because at the end of the day, this is this is a team full of international captains. There's going to be a lot of opinions on. There's a lot of chefs in that kitchen, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's one guy that keeps that thing all together. And I think it takes a really specific type of manager, and I think it takes a very specific level of experience to hold that together. So, I mean, great guys in that squad, top to bottom from a character standpoint, but like that's not a guarantee that some manager is going to come in and not have issues.
Yeah, well, let's shift over to that. I was going to ask you guys a couple more player performances, but we'll probably get to that as we try to make the starting 11 for the Brentford game. Xabi Alonso, obviously, the conversation is coming up. All the clickbaits. I mean, I saw every freaking clickbait Liverpool account on Instagram and stuff post that it was a done deal. Him and Klopp are making each other sandwiches. You name it. It was out there that it's very much a done deal. He's actually here. He's not even in Germany anymore, kind of like crappy rumors. But having said that, we never got a chance to talk about this. We talked a little bit about Klopp leaving and what it meant to us, but it was like a hectic game schedule, and we kind of said, hey, when the time comes, we'll maybe shoot that around. Alonso, are you sold, Gally? And, I mean, there's so many Liverpool fans watching Leverkusen like he's going to bring the entire 11 with him kind of a deal, and I don't even know if he's going to bring the same playing style or whatever, but are you sold on it as a name or as experience in terms of what he brings?
All right, so he's having great success at Bayern Leverkusen, and he had a moderate amount of success last year as well. And I think he should be really, really proud of what he's doing. And if they hold on to win that league, it will be very, very impressive. And I know I've had a little, insert foot in mouth, which I'm very good at in our Discord channel, about 5 minutes before the Bayern game when I said, I feel like today's the day where the bloom comes off the rose and Munich starts to charge towards their title. And then they went out and laid an egg and should have lost 5-0 and only lost 3-0. That being said, I'm still not thoroughly convinced that he won't do the same thing that Arteta did last year when the pressure got tough and the team that knew how to win was bearing them down. And sphincters get tight, and all of a sudden you make a bad call or two and a bad sub and a bad tactical move, and you lose points you shouldn't, and all of a sudden there's pressure that you don't know how to deal with. If you think that pressure is difficult being the second team in, or third or fourth team in the Bundesliga and coming to Liverpool and doing it under the red hot light of being an ex-player, a great player, and also one that has to replace the best manager the club has had in 50 years, 30 years, whatever it is, I think it's just too much to ask of a guy with his tenure. There is a reason that he was coaching in the B division in Spain less than 2 years ago. He has a lot to learn. There's also rumors that Bayern's interested in him and that he's made it clear that his dream job someday is Real Madrid. So those jobs become available. I don't want a manager who's going to be here for 2 or 3 years because I don't ever want to go back to being somebody's stepping stone to the next step of their career. And I think the next guy who comes, we should be trying to hire someone to be here for the same 5 to 8 years that we, originally signed with the mentality of having Klopp here. They pick up what he built and they build something new. And I'm not sure that Alonso's ready for it yet. But I know that I'm in the minority in this camp.
Yeah, I'm kind of like torn on it, to be honest with you, because I understand the point of him not having a lot of experience. I think one thing he has, I mean, everybody's going to have the same disadvantage, right? Everybody's going to be following Klopp. So automatically, everybody starts at a disadvantage. One thing I think Alonso has, which I understand what Gally is saying in terms of pressure, Bickler, but being an ex-player and being a really good ex-player, part of title-winning teams, like cup-winning teams, buys you a lot more time that an other manager, even if they have more experience, will not get. Just because, look at Ole at United, for example. When you're an ex-player, you automatically, there's a built-in grace period because we kind of associate our player memories and it gets mixed in with our manager memories we have of you, and fans find it hard to separate. What do you take of Alonso? Can he take advantage of that and kind of blend in eventually, because it's going to be a difficult task for anybody to follow a club, regardless of who it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really not a fan of hiring ex-players as managers because I just don't like to have my former version of players sullied by what happens down the road. So it makes me nervous. What I do like about Xavi is that he's still young, and I think what is impressive with him is that no matter where he is, if you look at where he's been and what he's done and coming through into what he's doing now, there is an identifiable brand of football that he likes to play. And that's really important to me because that means that he sets a team up based on a vision. And I think that sounds really elementary and stupid, but I think a lot of managers don't do that. I think a lot of managers come in and are designed to go ahead and get the best out of what's there already. And so if you're looking for a manager, like Gally said, to come in and actually build for the future, I think he does look like he may be that type of manager to go do that. I think the more interesting thing for me is if he's able to pull this off and Bayern go through this season and don't win the title, this is 140 year drought, 140 year consecutive season that gets snapped by Bayern where they don't win. This would be the first time in 140 plus years they don't win anything in a year. And so then we need to start talking about talking about Harry Kane in the same breath as we talk about the GOAT in Chicago with the Cubs and the curse of Babe Ruth. He needs to enter that conversation if that happens. And I'm being dead serious because that is wild.
And the crazy part is this is literally the same guy who is literally going there and going to set the record for the most goals ever in a single season in the Bundesliga. He's breaking all of Lewandowski's records at the club. They actually say he's the best soldier. He moved his whole family there. He's learning German. They love him. And you're just thinking to yourself, I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't just imagine that Babbel app just trying to respond to Harry Kane's marbles in his mouth as he speaks in German to the phone. How do I go to the bathroom? And they're like, where do you want to go in Russia? What is going on? But I could totally see that mouth breather just walking through that locker room. And at some point, Leroy Sané is just going to punch him right in the mouth. It's coming.
But Sadio is not there to do it. So
I won't be surprised at all, though, if Thomas Tuchel gets bombed and they come looking for Xavi at Bayern. And here's the thing. You have to think about this if you're Xabi Alonso. Do you want the Liverpool job, which could go well and could soil things? Do you want the Bayern job where they're going to just spend a shit ton of money and rebuild everything and you do have a good youth system coming through? You already know you're the only team in that league. These guys, anyone who takes the Liverpool job is voluntarily signing up to basically battle uphill and fight City and Pep for anything that they move forward. So I think there is something that also will go into the mindset. I don't know that everyone offered this job will say yes. And I don't think that would have been the case before Klopp was here. Anyone offered that Liverpool job would have snapped at the chance. I'm not sure everyone offered this job will take it this time around.
I think it's because, they know the pressure of filling the shoes in, whereas it was a win-win-win before, when Klopp came in. I see the Bayern situation makes it interesting. We were talking about this morning, would he wait another year and go to the Real Madrid job or whatever? But I feel if you do something at Leverkusen, you get the hell out of there. You don't stay in the scene of crime. Once you win something, you get the hell out because Bayern is going to walk back in there and say, good job, guys. So we'll take this guy to our team. And then next year we'll win the title because they can get whoever they want out of Germany over there. And you don't want your stock level, which is high. I mean, I think Brian was mentioning that he's the flavor of the month manager. Now you're at your peak. You don't want to have a year where you lose a couple of guys, whether it's to Bayern or to another team from Leverkusen who does not have the same budget as a lot of the bigger clubs, and then have a down year. And then now your stock really, really goes down. So I guess is there another name than Bickler than you're I would rather have this? I guess I'm personally having a trouble picking that person. So out of the what's on the table, I'm like, well, I guess I'll take Alonso to go. Is what I'm doing right now.
I mean, that's what we're all talking about, right? Like, no matter what happened, it's going to feel like a very significant downgrade. I think the only other name that's kind of really out there, that Nagelsmann, that does like it makes sense to me. Like, I can see that one. Like,
they tried to hire him. They tried to hire him before.
It makes sense. That I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but that makes sense to me.
If if Alonso was your son. Game that we played with players in the past. If Alonso is your son there, Bickler, which you make you really old as I am, what do you recommend that he does? Stick around, wait for the Real job if that's what you really want. See if you can finagle something to Bayern. Of course, this is all assuming they do not have a Dortmund-like collapse that happened at the end of last season.
If Alonso's dream job is to coach Real, I don't know why coming to Liverpool makes sense. I don't, because you risk your past on an uncertain future that you don't really want. Like for me, it's like, to me, like if I was his dad, like I'd be like, fly the coop and go into one of the dark horse teams in La Liga. Like, at least manage in the league you want to be in, like that's what I would do. So that, like, if he does take another team in La Liga that challenges, like, he's in line for when that spot opens. His family's all there. They're settled in the area. Like, they're relatively close. You can get anywhere in Spain in like 6 hours by train. Like, that's what I would do.
See, while I get that, I don't know. I feel like you gotta almost. I mean, think about it this way. I think we mentioned the name Gerrard this morning, right? 2 seasons ago, it was Gerrard or Pep was like the biggest argument of like the successor to Klopp before that extension and stuff like that. I mean, one poor season, that conversation is out the door. And that can happen to any manager. And that's why I think, Gally, that, if I'm Alonso, I'm like trying to, and Real is not available. And, obviously this is a very attractive position as an ex-player. I'm jumping at the opportunity to go to Liverpool or Bayern and getting the heck out of Leverkusen. Like I say, like leaving the scene of the crime before something bad happens.
I totally agree with that, but I'll ask you this. If you had the option between being at the biggest club in Germany that really doesn't have to compete across boards based on rules or being the sixth lowest spending team in the Premier League over the last 10 years, net spend, which one would you go to when you also have to challenge with Arsenal, City, eventually Chelsea coming back, United's new ownership, Spurs spending money, a new resourceful Villa side, and the sovereign wealth fund that owns Newcastle? Like, coming to the Premier League right now, people don't realize the job Klopp's done. Like, and I think that's what I'm mostly starting to like realize as I think about preparing for life after Klopp is like, if it wasn't for Jurgen Klopp and him creating a mindset at Liverpool that they could compete and there were no excuses for not competing with City, this would be the French league and City would have won 6 or 7 league titles on a 10 to 15 point walk.
Yeah.
Like, we could be staring at the best league in the world, the most competitive league in the world, and we'd literally be a farmers league. We'd be Liga. If it wasn't for
it would be competitive for Champions League spots. That'd be about it.
And that's all they have, right? What do they talk about in France? They talk about whether Monaco can finish third. They don't talk about whether or not. And then once every 20 years, Lille pops up and wins the league. Or Monaco has an amazing guy like Mbappe. And then what does PSG do? They buy the players. Just like what's going to happen? Alonso going to go to Bayern, and then he's going to bring the Leverkusen team with him.
Yes. And that would be my thing, because it'd be like,
here.
I'll bring the key guys that brought me here, there kind of thing. And, he's played there as well. So he has ties to that club as well. So it does make sense. Like I said, I did not realize Bayern was in the equation. And obviously, if they win the title, it would be a thing. But if they do not win the title, I don't think that becomes a conversation, because Bayern is not going to probably go after a guy who they beat on their way to the title. But Bickler, did you have a name in mind?
I really don't know what's going to happen here. Like, if I had to pick anyone, it'd be Nagelsmann, but I don't know what's going to happen here.
And why Nagelsmann? And let me ask you that. Why Nagelsmann?
I think there's a little bit of consistency in philosophy between like the idea of a Gegenpress and like just the way they organize defensively. I think there are some similarities. There's still in his system, there is still an emphasis on winning the ball in the final third. Like I think there are just a lot of things that sort of are variations on themes that are core to this team already.
Yeah, that makes sense. More like almost like continuity without continuity, kind of an ordeal. Yeah. Do you guys see any crazy scenario, Gally, where like they said, well, we want to start from scratch, but not that we would not consider Pep?
No, I think they told Pep he wasn't in consideration, which is why he miraculously announced he'd be leaving too with Klopp. Like, it was almost like no, we're all leaving. We're leaving together. The band is leaving. And it's like, well, we didn't offer you a job or a place at the table, so that's why you're also leaving. I think Pep knows he wasn't getting this job. And I think he was angling to get this job. And I think Klopp was trying to help him get this job. And I think they decided, George Schmacke, you're out. Klopp's leaving. The staff's leaving. We're bringing in a new director of football, new scouting department, a whole new coaching and training staff, and we're tearing this thing up from the ground up. Like, I know people like at first it was all De Zerbi, and there's some people that think it would be like a really great appointment because of what he did at Shakhtar and like the tactical nous he's shown and done with less talent his whole entire career, to be fair, even at Empoli, and then he went to Shakhtar Donetsk. People forget that terrible Shakhtar team went in and took out the title holders at Real Madrid, winning an away game to seal promotion to the round of the quarterfinals. Like, De Zerbi got the Brighton job, and Brighton got better. I know they're struggling now, but they've had also a dip of injuries and players. What De Zerbi brings is the same personality, temperament, and fire that I think the supporters would be able to rally around. I always question whether you need to change the type of man when you have a man as dominant as Jurgen Klopp. I feel like you almost have to go the opposite way just to kind of change it up. But I think De Zerbi is an interesting one because I think he has an eye for talent and he knows how to coach. I think that is a lot more important. And the idea that Allen would say, no, he blew it last night, like literally, yet we're giving Alonso what he's done off like 48 months of total big boy coaching, doing it in 2 leagues. Like, I don't understand where we build up certain ones and we knock other ones down. De Zerbi's got so much more in his CV. I think he would be an interesting one. And I know that I forget who it was recently said it. If Liverpool has the chance to hire De Zerbi and doesn't, they basically were like, don't look for any sympathy when he walks into Man City and doesn't lose again as he replaces Pep. Because if you gave that guy that level of talent, they actually believe he'd do more with that squad than Pep. There are some people that believe De Zerbi is like the brightest mind, one of the brightest young minds in the whole game. And it doesn't surprise me that Lallana, Milner, and all the ex-Reds are already dropping all these wonderful tidbits out in the media of what a wonderful guy and how smart he is and tactical he is. Because I think they're campaigning, because I think De Zerbi's made it known he wants this job. He feels like this is an opportunity for him.
And so I would not be against that at all. I mean, I'll be honest, maybe because it's the Klopp effect. None of the names I see are like, yes, gotta have him. I think Alonso is like a very emotional pick for most. I don't think we're looking at the resume. Nobody's looking at the resume. They're just like, it's time to end the show when Saidu likes what Gally said. So we'll wrap it up. Thank you, everybody.
I was just gonna say, we shouldn't bring God into any of this. Because I will say this, I saw a great meme online today, and it was something along the lines of like, if you have to pay whatever it was they paid for those ads last night, it was like millions and millions of dollars of people to basically find Jesus. You're basically reading from the wrong book. Like, Because last night, that was the weirdest thing. I was like, of all the Super Bowl commercials, I didn't think Jesus was going to come in with like the second highest paid spot of the night.
That wasn't like a nice paid spot on the night?
Yeah. Jesus came in ranked number 2. It was like behind like a Coke ad. And you'd think, of course, it's Coca-Cola. They do this every year. Jesus was like, you know what? Taylor Swift's coming to the Super Bowl. So am I, people. So am I.
Amazing what you can do when you're not taxed.
Yeah, yes. It was
great point.
Yeah, I saw so much talk.
Yeah.
The only funny thing is it took more talk away from like the Taylor Swift thing on the Super Bowl. I thought more people were talking about the commercial and why it was there and all that kind of stuff. Before we move to the Brentford game, though, let me get your take on Pep as well. Do you see a scenario, Paul, or because I don't know if Pep is like Klopp is leaving, he's my ride. I gotta go to then he's the designated driver, but then he will be like, let's start over and then we'll interview. Or, yeah, he's gone. Basically, he was told he's not really. They don't think he's a good assistant, and the good assistant doesn't always make a good manager.
I think that ship has sailed just in the fact that, like, I think they want to do a culture flip. I think that, like, Jurgen is such a strong personality, and he's endeared himself to so much to the fabric of the city that, like, you almost can't do a half Klopp. You can't do you can't have. You can't have leftover regime, I think is what they're thinking. Like, I think this needs to be a clean start, a clean slate. And in fairness to anybody who gets this job, that's probably in their best interest, including Pep's.
Yeah, I think so too. And like I say, I know people are like continuity and stuff like that, but that's not always making the manager the big man is not always doesn't bring continuity and bring success, because some people are great managers, really shitty when they're in charge because they're just like, that's their role, is being the assistants, being the bridge between the players and doing the tactics and not showing up to every press conference and answering the same questions and stuff like that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like I say, I'm sure we'll get more. I think it's right now makes a lot better clickbait. So you get a lot more Alonso news because obviously people are more connected to him. But that might change as we go. I just hope that it kind of gets resolved sooner than later, because as much as I hate January transfer window and those rumors, this has become the entire freaking spring now is what we're going to see with like manager rumors. But let's get to the Brentford game real quick. Don't have a lot of time left, but Gally, give me your, like, what do you expect to see? Is it the same starting 11 trotting out there minus Trent's obviously, or are you making any changes? I mean, Alisson, I guess, too.
I mean, Alisson will come back in if he's healthy, obviously. Kanate will come back in from suspension. I expect that. This is going to be an interesting week because we have Brentford, and then we have Luton midweek, and then we have a cup final 4 days later. So, there's going to have to be some rotation between these 3 matches. I think what we see on Saturday is the best 11 that Klopp has available to him, because I think it's who starts the cup final. Maybe Connor Bradley could start at right back in this matchup because he's healthy again, but I think Gomez will play at right back in the cup final. It really comes down to whether he wants to roll out Robertson 2 or 3 times in a week. And in that case, Tsimikas is back, but he hasn't gotten a run yet. But I think midfield, it's what we saw on the weekend. I think it's Endo, McAllister, and Jones. I think it's really hard on Harvey Elliott that he doesn't get a start, but maybe he'll get the start against Luton. And then up top, I would go with the same front 3. I'd go with Jota, Nunez, and Diaz because they give you the best chance at early goals, and early goals gives you the best chance at rotation.
Yeah, I think, like Harvey especially, I mean, the impact he has made, I still find it shocking that Gravenberch got the start over him, and I think looking back, Klopp might be saying, yeah, that was a mistake himself as well. And he almost came in like an angry guy trying to prove a point, and he definitely did, I think, against Burnley. So it'll be interesting to see how well he fits into the rotation. How about you, Bickler? I mean, we talked about Burnley not being as effective going forward. Brentford is, and they have some, they have weapons going forward, obviously, 20 and stuff. But does that force almost Gomez to start this one over Bradley if both are available?
I don't think so. I think I like the lineup that Gally was talking about. And in some aspects, I think Harvey almost suits the Luton match better, just in terms of what that match will demand from that midfield. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing you got to watch, and I think this is probably why Kanate coming back is key, is that Brentford hits you over the top with pace. So especially with Tony back, I mean, that's what they do. So you got to watch the long over the top diagonal with Brentford. They killed us. I want to say I think it was like last year they killed us. Well, it was one game. It was like some crazy 2-2 match. They just did it over and over again. So I think Kanade coming back is big for that because he does give you some more of that top end pace when you pair him with Verge and allow those pieces to almost move interchangeably. But I also think that's why it's a nervy game for me to have Trent there, just because like if he gets lost in space, you really open yourself up to that huge diagonal they can hit. They've got a slew of Danish players that will just ping it over the top to Tony and be in trouble. Yep.
Was there any update on Trent's injury? If he's out for any period of time, is he going to be back on the weekend? I kind of saw it as you take him off at halftime because he felt something, and it was a recurrence of the knee injury. That probably meant at least a week or two out. Is there talk that he might be ready for Brentford?
What I assumed as well. I guess we'll find out more throughout the week about how much he practices and stuff like that. But I take it as, if you're taking somebody out at halftime, and most likely you had the same thing with Szoboszlai. You brought these guys a little bit earlier than you probably should have. I know in Trent's case, you almost had to, even though you could argue he could have brought Robertson back, who was not coming from a muscle injury, and then put Gomez at right back if need be. But you can say maybe, okay, Trent kind of like forced it, but still, we brought these guys too early. I would assume, Gally, that having learned our lesson, we will wait to make sure they're 100%. And it could be a game where, like, he might come in the last 20, 30 minutes of the Luton game and then start the cup final or something is what I'm envisioning. But we're not going to, I haven't seen any like injury updates online either. So probably won't find out.
I was just wondering because I didn't see anything. And that to me is a big one though, because if you got Bradley and Gomez, you're in good shape. You're better off than you were 2 months ago when we didn't know if we had a backup right back, because it was Calvin Ramsey. And then we realized quickly he was a hologram. I think that you realize quickly, like, there are areas of this team that you have depth and there's areas you don't. And it'll be interesting to see what Klopp does. Like, does he play Gomez at left back throughout this week? Does he play Robertson one game and Tsimikas the other and then go to Robertson in the cup final? Like, if Joe Gomez doesn't start at Wembley, there's something so wrong with this season, in my opinion. Because you're playing a team like Chelsea, you need one of your best defenders. And I'd argue, outside of Jones, you could argue that like Joe Gomez and Virgil and Allison and Jones are like the 4 players of the year so far for this club. Like what they've done for this side, and all of them, including Virgil, by the way, because he's instilled the confidence back that everyone can be their best at defense because he picks up the pieces, which I think let Gomez be a marauding left back at times, even though he doesn't have a left foot hooked on his body. will say, I thought it was a birthday gift to you in the post-match when asked how Curtis Jones did. And I can't believe no one made a graphic of this either from the presser comments, but they asked, like, how do you think Jones did? And he's like, I thought he did great. I mean, we had to change our tactics a little bit. It wasn't fair to ask him to play an inverted right back position. And I think the person followed up and was like, could anyone but Trent play that position? And I was waiting for you to be like, should Trent even be in that position? But it was perfect because it was your birthday and the world gave you a Timuchin special on your birthday.
Yes.
And I'm sorry that we couldn't give you an overtime victory last night.
I know.
But the Swifts are in town, so don't worry.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, we can rejoice in that. Yeah, it was the disappointing end to an awesome weekend overall. But yeah, that's why I feel like I hate to say it, man. And I'm not gonna go out and say like let's sell him so that because that knows the hate mail.
Let's not do that again, please.
Yeah, let's not do that. But I hate to say it, but I'm almost glad, especially because of Brentford and because of the reasons Victor was referring to earlier. I'm almost glad he's not going to be starting this game. I would feel more comfortable Gomez actually starting this game as a right back or Bradley and stuff. Yes, thou shalt not pick on Trent. I don't think anybody picks on Trent more than I do, but hey, I'll go with that. Yeah, it was Calvin Ramsey, Thiago, and Besetic. Thiago is well and alive, people, in Anand's FIFA team. That's the only place I saw. It's like FIFA zombie mode. I was telling him is the only thing I can think of it there.
He had to have gotten hurt 5 minutes into it, though, right? Like he went down holding
It's
the
FIFA,
hamstring.
dude. It's not that realistic.
What's his fitness rating? Like 24? Is he like by halftime? Is he an orange? Like you have to sub him by half, or he pulls a hammy by the 16th minute.
I mean, that would only be slightly unrealistic, seeing that he made 11 minutes against Arsenal before a muscle injury.
No, the game is not that realistic. We were scoring goals with Nunez. Nobody hit the post and stuff.
Hey, he
and
made
then,
it through.
Thiago's
He made
out
it through
there running.
pregame. That's pretty good. I mean,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, he started the
better
game.
than the Champions League final.
oh,
Yeah,
God.
I mean, it was.
Oh,
I'll be honest. I played
Too
this
soon?
game probably more than I should, and you go against a lot of Liverpool, a lot of PSG, and a lot of France and stuff like that. And I've played Liverpool a bunch of times. I don't think I've ever seen anybody have Thiago starting in their 11 out of that. But hey, like I say, man, you got to give it to the guy. He sticks to his guns. And I was actually like, respect. I laughed and then ran around Thiago multiple times with my midfield. But I was at the same time, I was like, I respect that. I do respect that. Okay, let's wrap it up with some predictions, as always. Bickler, Brentford. Away, what happens?
2-1 Liverpool.
God, it's too painful. Go ahead. Let's do it too much and special. It'll be my birthday.
Nah, I'm kind of with Paul. I'm gonna say it's even dicier. I think it's a 1-0 Liverpool victory, and it is brutal as brutal can be. I just think that we are able to hold them down, kind of confuse them a little bit, and keep Ivan Toney in check. And if you can do that right now without Mbeumo, you're in decent shape against that side. But we can't give up one of these like weak set piece goals, because that will be what undoes us against this team. They will try to bully us in their building. We got to make sure and not play that type of football, and we need to just play real football. When we play that way against them, we usually do well. We play their games, we usually get slugged.
Shelton has 2-1 and 3-0 at the same time. That's, I don't know how. Oh, and then
he's giving us the Luton match.
He settled down on 2-1 at the end. He was like, I don't know, 2-1, 3-0. I'll go with 2-1. I'm going with a crazy game on this one. I'm going with the 4-2. It's like the Timuchin special +1, if you will. If you supersize the Timuchin special, you get a 4-2. I'm going with that. I don't see us shutting them out, but I do see us scoring against them. So let's hope for another win, because it is a tough, like on paper, these games are games that you should get 3 points from, but this is where we normally fail. So let's get the 3 points from these tough games and then let the rest sort itself out. I think we laughed a lot. I mean, a lot of people laughed a lot about like City, Everton. Will Everton be able to get anything from them and stuff? And they almost did. So I don't think we're going against the same City team. And so anybody can lose points. You gotta get Shelton has already predicted the Luton game, and I can't look that far ahead. Let's just get this one first. One game at a time, Brian. That's how we're all around here. One game at a time.
The manager's gonna yell at you. What the hell?
Yeah.
Do you not listen to Klopp? We don't think about the cup final. We're not even worried about the cup final. We still have to play Brentford and Luton. And when we play Brentford, we can't talk about the cup final. No one's worried about the cup final. No one is afraid of getting hurt on Wednesday. They all want to play, because all they care about is winning the Luton match. And then we'll worry about Sunday.
That's the way that Brian will never depend on Everton. I wasn't, but I feel like any game there's always a chance in the Premier League, and that's why I think no game. I mean, look at this Burnley game. I know on paper we thought it was going to be an easy 3 points, but nothing is easy in this league, and that's why I think one of the reasons the league is actually what it is. But on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thanks to all, as always, for liking, following. There should be a bunch of buttons you can hit on the bottom over there. Do not forget to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Spread the word. Don't make us bring out rumors about Alonso coming with Mbappe and stuff like that to get some clicks. So help us out with actual factual news by sharing and liking and dragging somebody by the ears so they follow us as well. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you guys next week.